Subscribe to the Hit That Line Podcast Network, brought to you by Breeden RV Center. Breeden RV Center, family owned and operated, a no-pressure, laid-back atmosphere, and always home of the free maintenance for life.
This is Trusting the Process, presented by the Arnold team with Weichert Realtors in Harrison.
No matter what the stats may say, and the experts may think, and the commentators may have predicted, when the race is on, all bets are off. Don't be surprised if somebody decides to flip the script and take a pass on yelling uncle. And then suddenly, as the old saying goes, we got ourselves a game.
This is Trusting the Process.
We've made it to the final episode of Trusting the Process in season number 1. Fantasy Football Sunday kicks off next Sunday, not only on hitthatline.com, the hitthatline.com podcast network, but also Sundays from 10 to 11. Really appreciate the Arnold team at Weichert Realtors being a part of this and being a part of that as well. Also appreciate Tommy joining me this afternoon as we get these things going. Now, you said you didn't want to come on. It was the last interview. Does this suffice? Is this okay?
I didn't think we'd make it this far. I mean, that was the deal. I thought I could get out of it by saying I would go last.
So you doubted that this was going to have success? I'm a little disappointed. Anything I touch at this radio station turns to gold. You know that.
Here we go. So
you know that. Come on.
No, I mean, I'll be honest. This is the very first podcast I've ever done. So. Other than the one we do,
popping your cherry on the podcast.
I guess so. Other
it's a
than
podcast, so we can say that.
Other than the one that we do on a daily basis for the Morning Rush, this is first time I've done one of these.
Yeah, it's. I think it's going to be fun. We'll usually go about an hour. If we need to go longer, if we can. If we need to go shorter, we can. I know you got the bat.
Do whatever we want, right?
Bat phone over there. So just
I put the bat phone down. Okay. So I've told them if I was going to be in here for about an hour with you. So. Okay. Leave me alone.
We'll start there because one thing I have noticed on going on car trips, on excursions, whatever the case may be, is I do get a lot of text. Mm-hmm. But you've received more calls than anyone I have ever worked around in an hour drive, 2-hour drive, 3-hour drive. And I get a lot of texts from friends, stupid, senile group texts, talking fantasy football.
I get those too.
Beer. It's a combination, but a lot of yours are business, reffing. Well, I mean, does that not get taxing?
Yeah, at times. I mean, when you're in the jobs that we do, and when I've been with Pearson Broadcasting for 18 years. Today, the day we're recording, it just.
What are the odds of that?
Coincidence, irony, I guess.
Almost like
is it irony or coincidence?
I planned it that way.
As you build relationships with teammates and coworkers, as you build relationships with business partners that advertise with us, with vendors, I mean, it just becomes. It just becomes part of the deal. And I've gotten better about text. A lot of people have gotten better about text. So the calls have kind of slowed down, actually, compared to what it used to be when we didn't text as much, 5 or 6, 7, 8 years ago. So now what we would have called about can suffice in a text. But I'm still old school. I like talking. I'm not as much a text guy as I am a call guy. If I have the choice, I'm going to call you versus text you.
If it's really short for me, I'll text, but my friends are always weirded out when I call them and want a 2-minute answer or just a quick conversation, because I wouldn't call myself old school being 26 years old, but I still have certain old school mentalities, just the way I was raised, and that's definitely one of them. We'll start and continue on there with just kind of how you were raised. Fort Smith, born and bred. Just kind of tell us about the early life. Tell the audience about kind of what your early life looked like.
My dad was a real estate. His passion was real estate. He was also a lawyer. My mom was a homemaker the early parts of my life and took care of us. And then when we got into grade school, she actually worked at the school at Fort Smith Christian where me and my brother both attended. And we went. I mean, I think Mom was ready for us to go as early as we could. I think I went to, if there was K2, we'd have been there. But I think I was there for K4, I know, and then kindergarten. And then I went to Fort Smith Christian first through 7th grade. Mom worked in the school, and then she moved into some other things as life evolved and moved on. But Raised in a home with a dad that believed in discipline and keeping us in line, but also was probably the smartest person I've ever encountered. Just a brilliant man, and went to law school because real estate, back in the late 70s, early interest rates went to the point he couldn't do real estate. So he said, I got to find something else to do. So he just decided to go to law school, and he worked second shift at Whirlpool and put himself through law school just reading the books and not even going to class for the most of the time. So
now Whirlpool, I've heard this story. They went down to Mexico, right? And that was a big hit in the River Valley market.
Yeah, it was. A lot of people worked there. I mean, at one time, Ty, they had over 4,000 jobs.
Wow.
So it was a huge employer, but it wasn't just that. It was all the companies that served Whirlpool, whether it was a gasket company or whether it was someone that made some part or widget or whatever that went into a side-by-side refrigerator. There was probably 20,000 jobs that were affected in the immediate area. But, yeah, my dad, when we were young, diapers young, worked at Whirlpool second shift and went to law school at the U of A, and that was kind of my early childhood. Raised in a Christian home. Went to the church doors were open. We were there. Went to private Christian school for elementary school through 7th grade, and got one brother that were 13 months and 13 days apart. You think there's ever any fighting going on in our house? Any complaining and griping and over who stole this or who took that? And of course there was, but I had a good childhood. We went to baseball games, Kansas City, St. Louis. We were big Braves fans. Went to Razorback games. My dad was the first one to inform me that, don't worry, son, they'll pull the rug out from under you and break your heart. So that's the story of my life. So. Sports were important. We played boys club football, and I played football in junior high. So that's kind of what childhood looked like.
You mentioned you and Teddy's age, not too far apart. Joey and I are 16 months, and I didn't know. I knew you guys were close in age, but I didn't realize it was that close. Mm-hmm. So what was the dynamic like with you two growing up? You touched on it a little bit, and then what has it evolved into today as you guys have explored different paths?
Yeah, I think. And I've got two they're not 13 months apart, but they're 19 months. Dylan and Abigail are 19 months apart at my house, and they're brothers and sisters. They fight and fuss, and there's a lot more fighting and fussing probably at this age, at 10 and 11. There is hugging and loving on each other. But we were typical brothers. Yeah, we fought and probably did not get along well enough the first 10 or 12 years of life, but today we have a great relationship. We share a house on the Norfolk River together and talk almost on a daily basis. There's not a week that goes by, particularly since my dad passed away, that me and him don't share a phone call or something every day or two.
And I know that's a really special occurrence on the anniversary of your dad's death, where you, Teddy, and I think it's one of your uncles get together and you go eat at Hooters, just reminisce, talk about your dad. You obviously have the River House on the Norfolk, which is very sentimental to you, not just because it's location, but in other ways. What was the phone call like when you found out your dad passed away?
It wasn't a phone call. I was at his bedside. I mean, I was holding his hand. That was as tough. So one of the toughest days. Probably not the toughest point in my life, but that was a tough moment. And not to get too deep into it, but I guess that's what this is about. Is my dad had a stroke on a Friday, or at least the beginning stages of it. Took him to the hospital. They thought it was a sinus infection. Sent him back home. The next day, we knew something wasn't right, and got in the hospital. And he was never really conscious again. Something major had happened. A major medical event had happened, but. I'd been at the hospital in Tulsa with him for several days, and this was Saturday into Sunday, and went and got some rest at a nearby hotel. My brother and my uncle were there with him, and got back over about the time I normally get to the radio station, about 5:30 or so, and I'm convinced he passed away at 5:55. I went in the room 20 minutes. You'll never convince me he wasn't waiting on me and my brother and my uncle to all be there, and. I'll never. It's just one of those moments that brand your life, brand your soul, and so it wasn't a call. I was honored to be his son and honored to be there, at the moment he passed.
What's the biggest value outside of just his smarts that you take away from your father?
He was always proud of me. He was always proud of me and my brother. I never had to question whether or not he loved me or loved my brother. Family, the value of family and what it means. The way my dad lived his life, his personality, I wish I had his personality traits and skills in a lot of ways. Could never even dream of having his brilliance. But any room, Ty, he walked into, he made the situation better. I mean, if it was 4 or 5 guys drinking beer, if it was 2 or 3 guys in a boardroom trying to figure out a problem for a business, my dad raised the average. And I can't say I do that all the time. Anytime he
do a good chunk of it.
Well, but I'm going to tell you, he was special. And I know I'm biased because he was my dad. But when he walked into any room, whether it was at the coffee group he had at Calico County, he just, and I'm not talking to Telly, just his personality changed the dynamics of any conversation. And the way he lived his life, the way he interacted with friends and people, he's been gone, he will have been gone 6 years this October. And I have friends of his that still call me, that still reach out and say, man, I'm just thinking about your dad today. I hope I can live my life in a way, the rest of the way. And he was gone when I was 39. I'm 45 now. That 5 years later, 10 years later, when you're gone, people give a damn. That it would be so sad to go through life and do what you do, amass a fortune, or raise a bunch of kids, or whatever it is you accomplished in life, material and otherwise. But then you're gone and no one remembers or cares. That's the thing about my dad, is he's been gone, like I said, almost 6 years now, and not just me and my brother and my family care. His friends are still impacted by his loss and still think about him and reach out. And that's what I take away from him in his 62 years on earth, is he made an impact on people that still to this day they remember and they feel.
Success is defined by a number of different ways. People look at it in a variety of different areas: money, power, family man. What do you think in that area? What do you think is your strongest relationship to your father?
Probably loyalty. That's one thing I value a lot. I think it's one thing he valued a lot, was the loyalty in relationships, whether it was, with family or your banker or an accountant or a friend, or, whether it was personal or professional. I think loyalty is something I put a lot of weight in, and I think I learned that from him. Is in relationships, longevity and loyalty matter. I think those two go together. It's hard to build trust with somebody over a short amount of time. It can happen, but generally, trust in a relationship is built over the long haul. And I think you got to be loyal to people through thick and thin to get to those points. Sometimes we cut people short and cut them off in life because something happens we don't like, and boy, if we'd have just stuck it out, maybe got to the other side. I know I've probably been on the received grace on that end, where people have given me more grace than I probably afforded, and it paid off in the long run. So I would say loyalty and longevity would be two things.
My dad used to joke with me when I was in middle school and high school that I was going to end up going to law school because of how much I wanted to argue and loved arguing. Yeah. Did you ever at any point think you were going to follow in your father's footsteps and go to law school?
I never was interested in that. I mean, I'm going to tell you, being raised by a lawyer was not fun at times either, because it felt like you were on the stand getting cross-examined at times. Because one thing he taught me: never ask a question you don't already know the answer to. So, hey, what time did you get in last night? Well, 11:30. Are you sure? Because he probably already knew the answer. Hey, what happened with that 5-iron that slipped out of your hand over there on the 7th fairway today? The grip was slick. Are you sure?
It left the hand.
So he always asked questions he knew the answer to, more or less, with me and my brother. So. I never thought I was going to be a lawyer. I know we'll get to radio. I was fortunate to figure out my passion very early in life, and I'm sure you'll want to get to that at some point later on in the conversation. But law school never really entered my mind, or really any path like that. So,
take us back to, I believe it was, 8th or 9th grade, and you found out, because we don't have to wait on that conversation. Let's just go and jump right into it. We had some sort of broadcasting my junior or senior year, and I was playing sports, so I didn't really have time to actually do it, even though I was interested and thought at one point in time that was what I was going to do, which now I am. You left sports, the playing side of it, for entirely the broadcasting side.
Yeah, I mean, following your passions, I think, is one of the biggest keys to a happy life and really kind of getting to where you want to be in life. Is being passionate about what you do every day. I'm not sure my dad was ever passionate about being a lawyer, but he was very passionate about real estate, and he loved that. And I was lucky. I mean, when I grew up, I mentioned I went to Fort Smith Christian. The church that was attached or supported that school was Windsor Park Baptist when I was a kid. And like I said, the doors were open. We were there. Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, Vacation Bible School, potluck, fellowship. We were there. And one of the things that from an early age that I had a great deal of interest in was they had their services on TV. And I was able to, as a kid that had no business doing anything with that, like 4th, 5th, 6th grade, they were just letting me monkey around and work with the cameras, and it was very, antiquated back then for the times we think about today. But it kind of started a passion within me. Well, fast forward, not that many years, but I'm at Ramsey Junior High. I'm on the 9th grade football team. I'm not thinking anything about what I want to do or what the path of my professional life's going to be. But for the 8th grade football games, as a member of the 9th grade team, you are assigned a job. You're going to run the chains. You're going to take tickets. You're going to keep the scoreboard. Kraft, you're the PA announcer. I didn't know anything about it, but they put a microphone in my hand, and it was my job during the 7th and 8th grade games to announce, the PA announcer. Well, I fell in love with it, and I'd had that interest in media. Fast forward another few months, and my grandfather, I had 4 great grandparents. I mean, wonderful people, great influences on my life. But my dad's dad, Tom Kraft, there was 3 of us at one time. We can talk about that too. There was 3 Tommy Krafts in Fort Smith for many years. My grandfather lived, his backyard backed up to the legendary Glenn O'Neill. Now, that's probably not a name you knew, but Glenn was just an absolute phenom at play-by-play. Been around for years, managed stations, sold advertising, was on the air, jack of all trades in local radio, but had phenomenal vocal talent and a great ability to do play-by-play. And they went to church together at First Baptist Church. So he asked Glenn as a favor, would he take me under his wing? And that's what got me started. My sophomore year of high school, I was in the booth with Glenn O'Neill at Southside Stadium, at Southside High School. It's now Jim Rowland Stadium. And I was doing anything, if I could carry the equipment, keep stats. He let me get on the air a little bit that first year. By the second year, I was doing color with him on the air, color analysis. Didn't know a clue of what I was doing or talking about, but I was there and I was doing it.
Still got those tapes? Or no?
Somewhere in a box, I got some that first year, Southside, and that led into me doing the basketball games by myself a lot because they had nobody else. I was willing to do them for free because I just wanted to do it, and I got on another radio station doing that. So early on, I was able to find my passion and follow it, and I'm thankful for the people that opened doors and allowed a kid that's 15 or 16 years old. I mean, we would be very apprehensive if a 15-year-old wanted to get in here and go on the air on a regular basis. That would create a lot of apprehension for us. I'm very fortunate there were people that gave me the opportunity to make mistakes and to learn at an early age, and then from that, it led to part-time jobs working on the weekends, to jobs in the summer, to my senior year of high school, ironically in the same building we work in every morning, managing a group of radio stations. Had no business doing that after my senior year, but I did. So I was very fortunate to, A, find my passion, but B, my grandfather introduced me to someone who allowed me to, kind of get my feet wet when he didn't have to do that.
A lot of play-by-play jobs you just listed, yet you find yourself in a much different position, not doing really any play-by-play. I initially thought I was going to be the next Gus Johnson. I since found that sports radio is my first love, and I can't contain myself when something crazy happens.
Yeah.
So why did you not venture more into play-by-play?
Well, I love play-by-play, and I did that from, I guess, 1991 through 2005, and had done and probably gave up on it too early. But I'd found officiating and really enjoyed officiating football and basketball at that point. And I changed jobs 18 years ago, or 17 years ago, in 2004, and came over to Pearson Broadcasting from where I was at. So the station I'd worked at previous to here, Ferris Broadcasting, they're still here operating several stations in the Fort Smith market. They had all of the play-by-play, North Side, South Side, Van Buren. I think they did every school but Greenwood with all of their stations. So once I left that group to take the general manager's position here in 04, that really kind of ended my opportunity to do play-by-play locally. At that point, there were really no other avenues to move up. There was no ESPN Plus. There was no digital streaming. There was no Mascot Media video streaming. I mean, none of that was even thought into existence at that point. So at that point, I moved into officiating on Friday nights, and I was satisfied. I'd done a lot of state championship games in football and basketball. I'd put together a pretty good resume at that point in my life, but I was ready to turn the page and do something else. And one thing Glenn O'Neill taught me or shared with me early on is, hey, you can be on the air, and unless you hit it big and go national, the money is going to be made on the sales and management side. And that got my focus early on to where I wanted to be in this business, and it wasn't just solely behind a microphone. You know, the start of the season is just around the corner, and if you're into sports betting, BetOnline is where you should go to win some money today. Whether it's live bets during games or future bets on who you think will win the championship, BetOnline has all the latest odds, news, and information for all your online sports betting needs. Visit the website today or use your mobile device to join and receive a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. So before the next big game or before the season starts, head on over to BetOnline and start playing today. That's BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts.
Travis and Carolyn Arnold of the Arnold team with Wykert Realtors in Harrison are your go-to real estate agents in the North Central Arkansas area. From Eureka Springs to Mountain Home, from the Missouri line down to Jasper and the Buffalo River area, these hardworking agents are ready to help you find the perfect property. Call or text them at 870-715-2404 and let Travis and Carolyn go work for you.
Screw them. This is your time. Now go out there and take it.
You're listening to Trusting the Process.
That's something that I continue to learn about on a daily and weekly basis. Now, I remember you told me you had a conversation with your father that initially you told him it was all about ratings, and he said, no, son, it's about sales.
Yeah.
You can't keep the lights on around here without sales.
Yeah, I remember early we were running some music stations that financially weren't doing well and ratings wise, and I was young and didn't really understand business or what a P&L looked like or all of the things that you guide yourself through a week or a month or a quarter or a year of business now with. And it was just youth and immaturity, and just like any other teenager or someone at that age at that time, you think you know it all, and you realize later in life I didn't know anything then. And I remember Dad and I having that argument over ratings versus revenue in this business, and I didn't believe him at the time, but I solely subscribed to his theory that ratings do not matter. Revenue is all that really matters because you can't deposit a rating point, as I say often. So what does matter is building a business that people want to engage with and have a relationship with, and that was one of my first really practical, hard-hitting business lessons from my father.
Prior to getting this job,
and that was after, by the way, one of my paychecks had bounced at the radio station I worked for. So that was what was the spark for that conversation, is the paycheck, which was not very much, by the way. I think I was making $750 a month to be the operations director, and the check bounced. So
I was producing.
That led to that conversation.
I think I was making $560 a month producing and doing a bunch of other stuff. when I was in college doing, 30 plus hours a week. So I kind of understand that.
Yeah.
Now
what you do when you're young and trying to get your foot in the door.
Yep. Prior to these jobs and sometimes after these jobs, you did spend some time at Arkansas Tech.
Mm-hmm.
Was that just in close to proximity because it's Fort Smith to Russellville? I mean, your dad went to law school in Fayetteville. Why did you choose to be a Wonder Boy?
Because the paycheck bounced. So when things kind of went sideways, if your paychecks start bouncing, then there's you got to start thinking about what's your next move. And at that time, my uncle, who Richard Kraft, still owns Gelco Outdoors. He's got a location in Fort Smith and also in Rogers. At that time, he had bought a store in Russellville. And I was working for him. I just had my first child. She's now 24, but she was a newborn at that time. So this would have been 1997 because she was born December of 96. And he needed someone to manage a store in Russellville, Arkansas. I have 2 years complete. I had 60 hours under my belt at what was then, the diploma says West Ark. It became UA Fort Smith at some point later, but now UA Fort Smith was West Ark. And it was kind of, the timing was good, so I'd never lived anywhere outside of this area. I pulled up my tent stakes and off to Pope County we went, and I ran a shoe store by day, went to class by night, never took more than 9 hours in a semester, and paid my way through the rest of my college.
Were you married at this time?
I was married, got divorced, got married in October of 96, and then gladly divorced in, let's see, that'd have been 99.
And Taylor might listen to this.
So she'd probably agree.
So what's been very, surprising, but I would say 75% of the people that I've had on have either come from a broken marriage with their parents or they've been divorced or something of that nature. Was that initially? I mean, you're young.
Well, I was young. I mean, when Taylor was born, I was 20 years old, and I turned 21. Her birthday's the 28th of December, mine's the 31st. So I was 20 for about 3 days, but scared to death. I mean, it's in a situation that, at 20 you're not equipped to deal with, but I found a way. At 21, I found a way. And if anything else, somewhere in my makeup, I got a strong work ethic as part of what I do. My dad always challenged me. I won't go as far as to say he shined the light on the path of work ethic, but I remember from early age at 13, 14, 12, 13, I was helping a landscaper in the neighborhood. I was probably more of a hassle than a help, but he let me help him do some stuff. He'd give me $5 here and there, and I thought that was, all the money in the world. At 13, 14 years old, I had a job at the golf course where we learned to play golf, and we were members of that club, but I worked there washing carts and picking up range balls because I wanted to make money. And did that for several years in the summer. Then I got into the radio business. So I can't remember, Ty, a day I really didn't have something going on, at least, part-time somewhere. I mean, I think I've been working since 13 or 14 years old doing something.
All right, so that was one marriage. Let's talk about Laura here for a sec, the one that your true love.
Yes.
So your ref friend introduced you to Laura. Yeah. Somewhat of a double date, somewhat not
really.
She was kind of unaware of it.
Not really. It just destiny. I don't know if that's the right word. Just the way it was meant to be. We met. I just I had gotten out of my marriage. Certainly wasn't looking for anything serious or solid. Just trying to actually be a 20-something-year-old because I didn't get to experience a lot of that at 20 and 21 and 22 like a lot of people get to in college. That, with the decisions I had made and the path I went down, I was raising a family. While people I went to class with, went to the North 40 in Russellville, I was at home taking care of a family or working or going to night school. So, after that relationship ended, you kind of got some freedom and ability to do things. And you mentioned refereeing. That if there was one great gift out of refereeing, is I met her because a refereeing buddy of mine was with his wife that night as friends, and we were at TGI Fridays in Fort Smith and just found each other. So it was meant to be, so to speak.
Thursday night karaoke. I'm a little disappointed you didn't sing anything.
Well, that might have been where we met for the first time. Then I know we had a real conversation on a Friday. It was kind of, and she'll kill me for telling this story. I'll tell it anyway. Then we went out with friends and had a nice night, and then we went our separate ways. And then we were supposed to have gone out the following weekend on a Friday night. I was going to referee a game, then meet her about 9:30, 10 o'clock. She calls me and says, hey, not feeling well, can't do it tonight,
So you met with another girl,
and
right?
and I thought, well, she's blowing me off. I knew, getting blown off, I knew that pretty well at that point. So I just thought okay, move on. Well, the next day she calls me, hey, I feel better today. Can we go out? And so, I was this close to us never really actually, because I thought this isn't going to happen. So turns out she really was sick. Turns out she had eaten something that didn't set well with her. And we went out the next night, and the rest is, I guess, almost, that had been 2002, almost 20 years together. Been married since 2004. So I've been married going on 18 years. So I was glad I took her phone call when she called the next day.
So how did that continue to progress as you guys, did you just continually ask her on dates? Did she plan stuff? Who really took charge as you ventured into eventual engagement?
She begged to spend every free moment she had with me. She could not get enough.
She's going to listen to this.
She just absolutely could not get enough. We were just a good fit. She had come out of a relationship and actually lived in Europe for a while, and was moving back, and we were just both in similar places, broken, needed some healing, and we just found each other at the right time. So we met in January of 2002 and married in March of 2004. So
how did the engagement go?
Rough. I planned it out well. It was well planned, probably poorly executed. Kind of like a football play. If somebody would have gotten the block on the left side, it would have been perfect.
80-yard touchdown.
It would have been an 80-yard touchdown, but I probably failed to get the linebacker blitzing through. Bought the ring. My mom at that time, let me get the wording right. My mom's still with me. Lived in Destin, Florida. So I bury the ring down inside my suitcase, hoping she doesn't find it. Bought this ring. Carried it with me to Destin, and then picked a night that, hey, Mom, can you watch Taylor? We're going to go out and eat. And I had it all planned out in my head. And so we went and had the restaurant's not there. It's called the Copper Grill. It's not there anymore in Destin, kind of out towards Sandestin. And then we went to the beach afterwards in the dark, and I asked her there on the beach at Destin if she'd be my wife. So
what went wrong?
Oh, I don't think I got the words out as smooth. Here was the thing. In your head, you're playing this movie. There's like violins and an orchestra in the background in your head, and nobody else is going to be there, and the waves are crashing in, and the lighting's going to be perfect. Well, it was dark. There was about 50 other people out there. We couldn't find a spot to ourselves, and the wind was blowing about 20. Other than that, it was perfect.
Okay.
But I remember it like it's yesterday.
Now, you bring up the beach. You guys like to spend time in Mexico. There was a time that y'all went and y'all both got sick. And I'm supposed to ask you about the trash can and the guy that worked at the resort.
I hope no one's listening to this while they're eating. This could... Anyone that's been to Mexico any number of times, and this was one of our... We'd already been married because we got married in Mexico. And we went back a year or so later, I remember it was in September, and this was before we were doing the morning rush every day. So I had a little more freedom during the week to do some things. I didn't have the obligations on the weekend. This was still very early on in my time here at Pearson Broadcasting, but Katrina had happened, and I remember us watching on TV down there all the things that were unfolding in New Orleans following Katrina's devastation. But something didn't set well internally. You know what I mean? And that's about as sick as I've ever been. So, there's no good way to when you're going at both ends. It's just ugly. And when you're doing it in a foreign country, it's ugly. And
what's that called?
I don't know. Montezuma's Revenge. I don't know what I had, but something had gotten a hold of me. Well, I'll spare everyone the graphic details, but at some point you had filled up a trash can and a trash bag. This needed to go somewhere. This hot bag of toxic nonsense needed to leave my room. Just put it nicely. So I've got tears. I am hurting. I've got tears in my eyes. This is terrible. I mean, this is about as sick as you can be, it feels like. Praying for death. So I grab up this trash bag, and I'm going to get rid of this somewhere at this resort. I don't know where. I don't know if there's a laundry chute. I don't know if there's a dumpster, but this thing is not staying in my room. I open the door, and I've got tears in my eyes. I can't even see. I'm hurting so bad. And this poor fellow was just standing at the door because he had kind of heard the noises of me getting sick, and he came to, check on us. He was in housekeeping. And I opened the door. He's standing there trying to knock on the door. Poor timing for this poor young man. And I've got this bag of hot vomit in my hand. This trash bag filled with steaming puke. And he instinctively grabs it. Let me get that for you, senor. And I just closed the door. My wife sees this, and she's mortified. Oh. She's mortified. I can't. I need to go lay down. She's chasing down the hallway with, tip money. He has no idea what he's holding there.
Ugh.
Oh.
Jeez.
I don't know what happened to that guy. I hope he made it.
Yeah, y'all been back.
That's a bad story.
A couple times. Does she have blackmail pictures on you?
Oh,
something?
Definitely. There's definitely some blackmail.
What are those?
Well, there's one or two from, and none of them involve what you're thinking, but there's one or two from our honeymoon.
What do you think I was thinking?
Well, I mean, blackmail pictures could go a lot of different directions. There was a night or two on our honeymoon where we got married in Cancun where, let's just say they brought this, not a bottle of tequila, they brought a cart of tequila to our table. And things got out of hand. Clothing was removed, not from the people that needed to have it removed, people like me that needed to keep all of their clothes on.
It's like the nude beaches we were talking about the other day.
And so there might be some photos out there that I wouldn't want to surface of things that happened, not in private, in public, and that in your younger days you kind of cut loose a little bit.
Okay, a little bit. Now
ended up with a blindfold and some kind of makeshift brassiere that they had on me doing a dance there at the resort. It was, I'm sure it's a thing of beauty. So
you and I agree about pizza, that if you're going to order it, there needs to be meat on it, and a lot of it. There's a time in New York where Laura's pregnant with Dylan, and all she wants is a grilled cheese or grilled pizza, and you were not too happy about that.
I mean, we're in the mecca of the entertainment mecca of the world, the food capital of the United States. I mean, the world is your oyster in New York. You can have steak, you can have lasagna, you can have cheesecake 24 hours a day. Anything you want, the best of the best, is somewhere in Manhattan, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, whether it's going to a play, whatever it is you're looking for, it's there, on that island. And so we'd planned in 2009, me, my father, and my great friend Scott Blair, the three of us went to New York City because we wanted to see Yankee Stadium before they tore it down. And that was my first trip, is August of 2009, first trip ever to Yankee Stadium. And this was right before Derek joined us here on the Morning Rush. 08 or 09, one or the other. No, it had been, it'd have been 08. That would have been 08. Our first trip was in 08. The trip with Laura was in 09. And it was such a great time. I'm like, I got to bring Laura back and share this with her. This is awesome. Well, by the time we got to it the next summer, and we'd had a great trip, me and my dad got some great photos of us at the Waldorf, at Yankee Stadium. Him and Scott and I had just a blast. It was so good. I said, hey, next year we got to go back. So me and Laura, Scott and his wife Sheila, and Ronnie Robertson, his wife, I think that was everybody. I may be leaving somebody. We went back the next summer for July 4th to watch fireworks from the Hudson on a boat and just have a great time in New York City. Well, by that time, we didn't know when we planned it that she would be with child. So, Dylan was in the oven. She had just...
It's your fault. You know that line.
Yeah, well, a lot of things are. She's probably 3 months pregnant. Well, she had she didn't want steak. She didn't want lasagna. She didn't want any of the things you go to New York. She wanted cheese pizza. Pizza and grilled cheese. She was an affordable date, but I didn't go to New York to have grilled cheese and cheese pizza for a week.
Dylan's partially to blame for that because I would think that's the case. Yeah. Now, baseball was brought up, and I was unaware that there was such a disdain for Oklahoma Sooners in this state, but there was a time where
I had to educate you on that.
Ruskin thought that the tipping point of you not liking the Oklahoma Sooners came when you guys watched the Arkansas-Oklahoma baseball game and were kicked out of the OU's president seats, who, by the way, was not there.
No, I mean, we go over to this regional. I don't remember what year that was. You'd have to tell them 9 or 10, somewhere in there.
09. Well, I say that. I don't know.
It was the regional. Anyway, we went. I think it was. I don't know. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Arkansas played in the regionals at Norman, and I'm telling you, the facilities there. And we're so blessed here with Baum Stadium and everything that we have at the University of Arkansas. But we get over there, and I mean, literally, the pre-tournament press conference is under a funeral tent. I'm not kidding you. I mean, this thing is a joke. And there's not enough seats in the press box. There's not enough seats anywhere. And the stadium is full because the Razorbacks have come over. Well, Ruskin and I we're just looking for a good spot to watch the game. And we wander over, and there's these 2 seats. Perfect seats right behind the third base bag that nobody's sitting in. So we just help ourselves and plop down. Well, here comes the security guy about 2 minutes later. Sir, you're in President Borum's seats. And I look up and said, was he here? Well, no. Is he coming? I don't know. I said, well, if he does, I'll get up. And they said, no, you got to get up now. So they threw us out of President Borum's seats, even though he never showed. We watched him the rest of the way, never showed up. That thing was a joke. But the fans, it was just another example. I grew up on it, where Oklahoma fans constantly want to remind you how superior their program is. And then you bring up any other sport like baseball or basketball or certainly track or anything else. Well, it doesn't count. Only football counts. But and you've come to understand my disdain. It's not so much with the program; it's with the fans and the fans.
It helps having an Oklahoma roommate.
Yeah, I mean, so you get it. But I remember we were doing. Ruskin and I came back. We didn't stay for the regional final that Sunday night because we wanted to be here Monday morning. So we did the post-game show for the baseball game from the studio, and Arkansas had won. They were moving on. And I believe it was 09 because the next week they played here in the Super Regional and then ended up in the College World Series. And we're hee-hawing and having a big time because Arkansas is going to the next weekend. And some old boy calls in and he wants to roll through the entire history of Oklahoma football because we're pretty well trashing the Sooners at this point. For Arkansas beating them and just their general lack of hospitality in Norman that weekend. And some old boy calls in. And he wants to roll through, every season and every championship. And Ruskin shuts him down. I wish we still had this clip. He'd finally, scoreboard, big boy, scoreboard. And he just goes off on him that it doesn't matter about any of that. Arkansas won tonight. Scoreboard. Take a look at it. Now, I'll never forget that from that weekend.
With spring and summer rolling in, it's a great time to find your perfect vacation home here in the Ozarks. Whether it's living and fishing on one of our beautiful lakes or canoeing and kayaking on the Buffalo or White Rivers, Carolyn and Travis Arnold of the Arnold team would love to help you find it. Call or text 870-715-2404. And these experienced agents with Weichert Realtors in Harrison will help you find your dream place here in God's country.
Now, what are you going to do?
You're listening to Trusting the Process.
There's been a couple funny things that have occurred during the shows. What would you say of all the years during the morning rush? I know there was a Ruskin rant. I couldn't find the clip.
That's somewhere in the system. He went off on Calipari. Yeah. Right here in this chair I'm sitting, he was pounding the table. I think he hurt his hand doing it.
He said that there was a funny time that you guys were coming back from SEC media days and you really had to go to the bathroom. Oh. And there happened to be the train that never passes by this radio
station. Yeah, right up here. Here.
Going by.
You've worked here 3 years now. How many times have you seen a train on that track?
Not one time.
Okay, we had just driven 8 hours, and about Clarksville. Hey, I need to go, but I think I can make it. That's how a man thinks. We got to A, beat the time on the GPS, and B, we got to see how few times we can stop to pee on a long road trip. So, hey, Clark, I can make it. Ozark, I can still make it. Mulberry's getting a little tighter. Alma, I need to go, but. So we get about 5 minutes from the radio station.
Is that a bottle or a cup around? Is that a bottle or a cup around?
Well, we're not going to do that driving down the road. I mean,
You've never done that?
Well, we're not going to do that on a work trip, okay? And so we're about 5 minutes from the radio station. I'm going to make it, but I got to pee really bad. So I called the office and I tell Betty, I said, Betty, if anyone's in that bathroom, tell them to get out of there fired because I got to go. And she kind of laughed, and Ruskin thought that was funny. So we get to these train tracks down here where there's never been a train in the history of history. And what's there that day? A dadgum train. So anyway, I made it. Accident avoided, but he thought it was funny. I didn't think it was very funny at the time. He was about to fall out of the car laughing at me.
That's one road trip. You also had to drive to Illinois one time to get something to do with the transmitter.
Oh.
That would have been quicker if you drove than getting it overnight to get you all back on the air.
There's several tough transmitter stories. That's part of this job, being the general managers. It's not just being on the air and having the fun. It's taking care of, making sure billing and traffic get done, to making sure the engineering and on the air. And we had a tornado came over our site at Buck Knob, which is a tough place to get to anyway. Lifted the roof off just enough that water poured down inside the transmitter. Now, high voltage electricity and water do not mix very well. And we were going to be off several more days, but I drove all night, middle of the night. Actually, it wasn't to Illinois. I paid somebody from our sister station in Lebanon to drive to Illinois, get them, and I met them in Lebanon, Missouri, which is 5+ hours away, almost to St. Louis, and then drove back, up there and back, round trip, got the parts to the engineer, and I sped up our recovery to get back on the air by about 3 days doing it that way, because as I've learned, none of these disasters happen when you can get the parts out that day for overnight, and this one was like on a Friday, so it was going to be Monday before they could ship it. So it was, you do what you got to do. There was another one that happened where we went off the air because of a major snowstorm at Christmas.
02 or 01?
No, this was well after that. But we at the transmitter side, we got like 18 inches of snow. It's on a high mountain, but there was like 6 or 8 inches of snow in the river valley. And power had went out. Some equipment didn't reset properly. We couldn't get back on the air. This was the 20th on Christmas Eve. Well, I wasn't going to mess with it Christmas Eve. I was just praying for a miracle. Christmas miracle. It would just come back on. It didn't. Christmas Day, it didn't. So the morning of the 26th, I load up with my father. My father-in-law said, I'll help you. We load up his four-wheeler, his truck, and we head south to Waldron. The roads have been snow-covered. We get about halfway up the mountain. The truck spins out. We've now gotten his truck stuck in the middle of nowhere. This is my father-in-law. Not a good spot for you as a son-in-law to get your father-in-law's truck stuck in 18 inches of snow. We unload the four-wheeler. I'm going to head up and get it fixed. Four-wheeler doesn't make it half a mile, and it's just bogged down because the snow's too deep for the four-wheeler. We got to get on the air. I'm still close to 4 miles from the door of the transmitter building. I take off, just hoof it through knee-deep snow, get there. It was a simple push of a button.
You walked 4 miles?
One way, and it was almost 8 miles round trip in the snow. But if not, we weren't going to be on the air for a few more days. So, I mean, that was probably the toughest physical assignment I've ever had to go through to get us back on the air.
How old were you at the time?
35, 36.
So not 40 plus.
No, it was not. And then, this is a true story now. Get back. He has the truck unstuck, four-wheeler loaded. We get in the car. We drive back. I take a shower, get in the car, drive to Harrison, referee 2 basketball games. All in the same day.
I would have not done the latter.
I was tired.
There's not much of a backup there. One of the things I've noticed, though, is have a backup, make sure the radio stations sound good, be as smooth as you can with just the equipment and stuff. And I try to make as many promos and various things throughout the week to make sure that we sound professional. Mm-hmm. How early in your career did you make that a priority?
Well, I mean, you just keep stubbing your toe on so many things, and you've learned. For me, I try to have a backup to the backup, if I can. And some things you can, some things you can't. We have generators where we can, and you have what you can afford as well. But the thing in this business, it's all computers and it's all electronics, and at some point it's going to break. And it's you watch Deadliest Catch?
I've watched it a few times, but I can't say I'm an avid.
I used to be really avid about Deadliest Catch, and I've kind of gotten back into it this year. But you'll notice on that show, like a hydraulic arm will break, or something on their crane will break. The deal that lifts the pots, something will go wrong. And if they don't have another one on the boat in the middle of the Bering Sea, what happens? They have to shut her down and go back to town, they call it, and go find it, and then they're down until it can be fixed. Well, when you have, but then on occasion they'll have something break on the boat that we got a spare, or they can get a spare from somebody, and now they're back in business, and they don't have to motor back into, to the shop to get fixed. So same thing here. I mean, we're going to have things that break because they're electronics and they're mechanical, and you just try to be proactive about taking care of a lot of that stuff.
I think adjusting is a part of this business, trying to become more new age. You could see on this wall right there that we're on far more platforms than we used to be. The podcast network, the things we've thrown together. You've also had to adjust with different hosts, not just working with different hosts, but co-hosting with different hosts. I want to go step by step with each of them, because when I initially got here, I was unaware that Josh Bertuccini was the first co-host of the Morning Rush.
Yep.
What was that like, and how did that come to an end? I know, obviously, but for our audience.
July of 2006, we started that show. It was the week before Paul Eels passed away, and we were getting ready we didn't have any clue that the 2006 season was going to be as large as it was. I had started at the radio station late in 2004. We'd done some things with local programming, but I saw the need that, hey, if I'm going to get this business to grow, and I had to get some things in place, salespeople in place, some structure in place. I had to figure out what I was doing. But I felt and sensed the need that, hey, if we had something local that's ours that we could do certain things on the air with, I think I can grow this business. And it's been one of the better decisions that's worked out over time. So we started that show in 2006. Our time together was the first couple of years, and then Derek Ruskin came in August of 2008 and joined me, and that was a great 10-year run. We had immediate chemistry. It was the first.
Not so much with the first guy.
Well, I mean, we were just both at different places in life, and I know everybody wants to hear this, some kind of story that's not true about fist fights and yelling. Listen, I was in my 20s. He was in his early 20s.
How many people applied initially for that job, by the way?
Probably a dozen or more. And it just. We have never had a short, as you know, because you've been through a few transitions, we have never had an inability to attract candidates for any of our on-air positions. Anytime we post, and now we post them online, back then you did it a little bit different. Now you put them on your social media and your website and that kind of thing. We've never been short on interest in jobs here. So some candidates are better qualified than others. Some have more experience than others. But the point is I think this last job that Drew filled, we had close to 60 resumes. So some better than others. But there's an abundance of people that want to do what we do, and feel blessed to do that. So then Derek joined me in 2008, and that was a great run. His life evolved and changed, and that was one of the fun things to see, and I enjoyed for him is. Towards the end of his time with us, he met Jennifer, got married, had a family together, and that led him to a move to Fayetteville. And this job just became impractical. And I'll tip my cap to him. For 3 years, he drove down here in the middle of the night to do this job, and I would have been burned out a lot sooner than the time he gave it. But
did y'all ever consider him doing remote up there?
I think by the time he got to that point. He was just ready for a break and a change. And I know he told me that he felt like he had said all there was to say. It was towards the end of Bielema's run. But he is in a large part. There's a lot of people that have helped along the way in my 18 years to build this business. And he deserves as much credit as anyone for the 10 years that we spent side by side. It's fun having him back now with our future with KAKS, ESPN 99.5 in Northwest Arkansas. We're back to working together again on a daily basis. So, but there's a lot of people that have helped over the years get this organization to where it's at. I've just been fortunate to lead it, but he's been as big a part as any that we've had here.
We'll talk about John coming up, but Fuchs, Nick Mason. Who else has produced the Morning Rush?
For the longest time, Josh and I never had a producer. Derek and I didn't have a producer till close to the end when we'd hired. We had Josh Smith, David Fuchs. I'm probably going to forget some people along the way. And then Nick Mason, and then you. And then you know the chain from there. And now we're with Drew. So, for the longest time, we didn't have a producer because we couldn't afford one. We were trying to build this business. Literally, when I got here 18 years ago, we were not in a position financially to be able to even do a show, much less have a producer for a show. So a lot of the things that we have now, the on-air staff for that station was me and Derek, and I was I still am the general manager. So the staff for the station was really Derek. So a lot of what we have now, and the group of on-air people and the talented people we put behind the microphones that take care of a lot of other things, we didn't have them back then because the business had not evolved to that point.
So transition, Derek decides he's going to hang it up. Who all did you interview besides John?
I'd have to think about that, but from the very outset of when Derek told me his intentions to leave, and he was wonderful about it and didn't put me in a box and say, hey, I'm giving you 2 weeks and that's it, because that had been a difficult transition, but we'd have made it through. But he was a pro about it, and I really appreciate that, and I've told him that. So he gave me ample time to find someone. We had a relationship with John because he had done a midday show on 99.5, and we had aired that, and he overcame your producing of it and still put on a pretty good show. And I remember, that, and I'm not sure of all the details why his situation necessarily ended there, but at the time he was working in Little Rock. He wanted to be on the air. He had a job that wasn't on the air, and there's not a ton of people that can do what we do, and there's some reasons for that. But when you get down to it, Rusk and I used to have this conversation. There's more people in this town that can operate on your brain or your heart right now than can do a radio show. Doesn't mean there's others that can't, but the people that do this is a very limited group, and this job really requires some background and some knowledge about what we cover because we're so Razorback focused. So John was our number one target and had that conversation over some beers and a cheeseburger at the Ohio Club in Hot Springs, and I'm just glad it worked out. So,
how did you come with the "Who the hell is John Neighbors" sassy video that has become so famous and funny?
Well, we did a live read at that time for Sassy's, and he always named those barbecue nachos, that were on the menu. He just self-proclaimed it as the John Neighbors special. It was just something we goofed around with. So me and Jamie Holt and a guy named Dan Schauer were having lunch one day at Sassy's, and we just thought it'd be fun to put a video together of me trying to order the John Neighbors special, and the waitress said the John, she had no clue. What's the John Neighbors special? Who the hell is John Neighbors? And we brought, of course, the video back and clipped that little part out, and it just became a funny little bit on the show.
So Nick decides that he's going to hang it up at some point. I remember him calling me in either March or April of 2018, asked if I was interested. Do you remember at the time, before I was hired, how many people applied for that producing job and some of the candidates you interviewed there?
Not enough.
Not enough. This is
I don't remember. I'd have to go back and how many we interviewed. I don't know. Generally we'll go through, dozens of resumes, as because you've been on this other side of it with me now, and you pare it down to half a dozen or less that really seem to be a fit for you. So probably 2 or 3 is what we interviewed, and obviously it's worked out to the better for both of us that you were able to move back from Nashville and be a part of our team here.
I got a couple more questions for you as we're coming up on this hour. I'm supposed to ask you about this red fishing trip in Louisiana.
Yeah,
I think is what it is.
What about it?
That you almost died?
Oh, that part of it. Well, it was me and we had a group. We haven't done it because of COVID the last couple of years, but we had a lot of fun. Well, you did do your homework on that one. Me and my good buddy Scott Durham over at Harry Robinson and Wade York, who is the owner of Arts Barbecue and Joe's Grill, and Monty Butler and Jeff Ladd and Mike Hessen. Mike also works at Harry Robinson. Monty's an orthopedic surgeon here in town, and Jeff's in sales. For a couple of years, we'd made a trip to Venice, Louisiana to go red fishing. Well, me and Wade and Scott got out on the water, and we're 30 minutes from town or whatever, red fishing. Storm clouds are rolling in, and I mean a major thunderstorm rolls in on top of us, and the guide says, y'all sit on that cooler and hang on that bar, and I'm going to see if I can get us back to town. Well, just before that had happened, I'm going to tell one on Scott here. We were fishing. We had no idea. We couldn't see land anywhere around us. Is Wade on the front of the boat, me in the middle, Scott was on the front, I was in the middle, Wade was in the back. And the boat's rocking. I mean, this storm's coming in. This boat's going up and down, back and forth. Well, the pitch of the boat catches Scott off balance, and he goes ass over tea kettle into the water. And I'm freaking out because, I mean, you know, I'm thinking it's 700 feet of water. You know, what's going to happen here? And he's flailing, and we're trying to get him back in the boat, and the guide's standing there not doing much. And he says, "Hey, Scott. And he kind of calms everybody, goes, "Hey, just stand up." We were in about 3 feet of water. So we kind of calmed down, had a good laugh about that. So he gets back in the boat. The storm's rolling in, and we're wet. And I'm telling you, this is as rough a thunderstorm as you can imagine. And we finally get back to the cabin there, but I remember looking at Wade, and he said, "This is where we're going to die." And I said, "I sure hope not."
Jeez,
but we had a lot of fun red fishing. That same group, we go trout fishing together at my place a lot. We don't get together enough, but we all have a good time when we do.
Reffing was brought up earlier, and that was something you said you found early on in your early 20s that you enjoyed. Now, I did it for the first time this past year, and I found that there was a few Morning Rush listeners that had daughters at the Girls Inc. that were playing basketball that day, knew my name, and specifically got mad at me when they thought there was an incorrect call, because, of course, there was an incorrect call. I was 100%, as I always am. But the balancing act of people
With
knowing...
your minutes of experience, you've nailed the call. I got you.
Balancing act of doing sports radio, having a public voice and being a public figure, and people knowing where you are on a field or a court.
Yeah.
How do you get over some of the things that are said to you with them being personal? Your show sucks. You suck. Your
I've heard it all.
Awesome.
You know, now that one I haven't heard. You know, we talked earlier about finding your passions, and I was lucky at 15 years old to find my passion and have people in my life that guided me towards it and then allowed me to do it. And officiating was something, even I remember being a 7th or 8th grader, and I remember watching guys, you know, when I was in junior high, going to games as an elementary kid, and I was just fascinated with the officials and the announcers, two things that fascinated me. And it's just never anything I followed up on. But when I moved back from Russellville to here, a friend of mine named Jeff Harness got me started into football officiating, and I've got 20 seasons behind me now, and just following that passion. I mean, I learned you got to have a couple things that you just really enjoy and that can get your mind off all the other things that bother you. And officiating has become it's a brotherhood. I mean, some of my closest friends in the world are those that I referee with, and you know, those are people you can count on, and that's just part of the reason why you do it. But some of the relationships developed there. You ask, and your question was about people making comments. I'll be honest, we hear them sometimes. Do we care? Never. I mean, you just move on, because what's being said is just usually out of a fit of frustration or anger, or things aren't going their way. So, or a lot of times, sometimes it's people I know that are my buddies. They think they're having a good time up there giving me the business. So, anyway, those things don't really bother me.
Passions in refereeing in radio. As we close down here, always ask this question. Now, I've interviewed some people like Clay, who's now 66 or 67.
67, I believe.
67. I've interviewed some people around my age. Now, you're in a state of life where you're kind of in the middle of me and Clay, almost really.
Speaking of refereeing,
smack dab in the middle. What is the end goal for you in radio, and how long do you anticipate continuing on the trajectory that we are at this company?
Well, till the bills run out, I guess. My kids,
which is never.
Yeah, the bills will never run out. My kids are 10 and 11, and I can't foresee me really doing anything different till they're probably in and maybe out of college. So that's a hard one to answer, but I've got a plan. I'd like to do this till they'll, as long as I want to do it, as long as they'll let me do this. But I could, if you ask, can you see yourself doing this at 50? Yeah. 55? Yes. 60? Maybe not. We'll just see how things go. But I still enjoy it. People wonder, how do you get up so early? That's become just so easy for me to do that. And I guess the older you get, they say the easier it is to wake up in the middle of the night. But I still enjoy what I do every day. And every year has its own challenges. Some years are better than others from the business standpoint. But I look at this morning show that you and I get to share every day together, my officiating. Those are some of my breaks from the hard stuff, that comes along. So when it ceases being fun, I'll figure out an exit plan. But right now, I'm still having a lot of fun.
Well, that's going to do it for Season 1, Episode 33 of Trusting the Process. Really appreciate the Arnold team at Weichert Realtors being a part of Season number 1, as well as Bet Online. And, Tommy, really appreciate you taking, I know you're busy as we're 9 days out from football season, but I appreciate you taking some time this afternoon to join me and have a little conversation.
Appreciate you asking. You've had a great first season on this podcast, and I'm looking forward to what you have ahead in Season 2.
That's going to do it for us. For Tommy Kraft, I'm Ty Richardson. Whatever line of work you're in, make sure you're always trusting the process.
Trusting the Process is brought to you by Travis and Carolyn, the Arnold team at Weichert Realtors Market Edge in Harrison. This podcast has been presented by Bet Online.
Long range! Are you kidding me? He's got his J back, folks, and the eye of the tiger.